So I haven't recorded one of these in a while, but I was wasting time on teamblind.com, just browsing the forum, looking at random threads. And one such thread caught my eye. It was a post by some dude who went to a dinner party hosted by two of his other friends. And these two other friends were in a relationship. I mean, that's extraneous information, but just fleshing out the story. So these two people hosted a dinner party. Other friends came as well, besides the author, the OP of this post. And what he said, or what really grinded his gears and motivated him to make this post, was that after the dinner party was over, when they were driving home, they got the notification for a Venmo request for money in terms of covering expenses in the dinner party. So this really rubbed him the wrong way because he felt that the hosts, the two friends who originally hosted the dinner party, were being very cheap, and this was not a good thing that friends should do. And most of the people in this thread also that left comments were agreeing with him that this kind of stuff, if the two people that were hosting the dinner party didn't notify or let the friends know before the party actually happened that they would be doing this kind of maneuver of charging money afterwards. If they didn't notify the other friends, then this was a scummy thing to do, not what a real friend would do. Now, the reason I want to do a short episode here today was actually my initial reaction upon reading this thread and the story was I didn't think it was such a big deal. And I didn't think that this was something that was necessarily wrong or even that much of a bad thing to do if you were the host, right? But I started thinking about it more, and I don't know, I'm kind of in a mixed situation right now where I understand perspectives from both sides, whether you support it or whether you think it's a bad thing to do. So it certainly wasn't, even though I had this preconception or opinion before that it's probably not the worst thing you could do, it's not necessarily a bad thing as well. I have heard stories of other people in my own life, actual friends, bring up semi similar situations and them being peeved about it. So, one such situation I heard was I was actually overhearing just people talking. Basically, I had some friends that are in a frat, and there was like another frat person that was with them, and they were talking about why this other person that most of us all knew. I only knew him as an acquaintance. They all basically only knew him as acquaintances. Also, they weren't really friends. They were talking about how this person had actually rushed for the fraternity that all these people were in, and how one of the behaviors that the person did really was off-putting and made them not really want him to be in the fraternity. And this behavior was this case where it wasn't the exact same thing, but it was more of the person in question was asked to basically go pick up drinks or something like that. And since it was like in a party setting, um, the implicit reasoning from the people in the frat were like, if you're asked to go do something and it's like in a social setting and everyone's like having fun, it's kind of implied that you're gonna go do it and you're going to pick up the tab and you're not going to, ask the other people that you're getting drinks for or whatever to pay you back. And the more implicit reasoning to make everybody like friends, I guess this is some kind of test for the fraternity, is obviously, of course, if you're just getting drinks for someone and they never repay you back in any sort of way, it's not exactly a fair deal, right? So normally, how it would be more socially acceptable, at least how frat guys were describing it, is that you would go out and get the drinks, whatever. You wouldn't request people for money, and then there would be an implicit understanding between everybody that you helped that sometime in the future they would then kind of repay the favor and do the same thing for you. So if they were getting drinks for you, then you wouldn't have to pay them back. And that was the quid pro quo where everything would be equal in the long run. However, well, obviously, this person didn't do that. He went and got the drinks, and then he was charging people for money. And this wasn't exactly the main reason why they didn't actually really like him, and I guess weren't very super hot about having him in the frat. And he didn't join the frat overall, if you were wondering. But I think the main reason that they didn't really like him and brought it up was that he was actually quite insistent on getting his money. Like, he requested on Venmo, and then afterwards he like sent reminders and texts about like paying back the money. So I guess in that sense it could be considered quite annoying if you are the frat people, since it's like you're part of doing this like rush event. It's kind of implied or understood that anybody who's participating in this, you're all trying to have a good time, and there's some kind of underlying social contract that is in play here where you shouldn't be annoying and try and get money from people. But at the same time, I can also understand the original person, the person in question, why they did this, right? If you're in this rush event and then you're doing this for people that you really don't know at all, you haven't really developed any rapport, don't have a strong relationship with any of these people because you're probably meeting them for the first time in this social environment and don't really know if, since if you're not even in the frat, then it's not like they're going to repay you, right? So if you aren't willing to make that investment where you're just going to be spending money and not guaranteed to get something from it, not even implicitly socially guaranteed to get something from it, then I can see why you would be kind of insistent on breaking even and getting your money back, right? So then the tactics of, I don't know, being more insistent, sending messages, follow up reminders, perhaps that could be a little weird, but I feel like, these frat guys are probably exaggerating it and it wasn't exactly the full unbiased story because, well, I'm only getting one perspective from it. But you can see from the story how it's kind of similar to this thread that I saw, right? Where basically it's like one person, there's like some implicit understanding that you shouldn't be requesting money from other people in this particular situation. But then if you do, then there's kind of this stinky feeling where the other people aren't going to be exactly happy that you did this. And so when I first heard that story from the frat guys that were talking about it, I was like, well, I mean, that's how I was be able to describe the other person's probable perspective, right? Because I can kind of empathize with him. So that is the kind of mentality I was coming into when reading this thread for the first time. However, with the dinner party scenario, I think there's a couple things that are different from the frat party buying drinks scenario. So first of all, if it since it's a dinner party and it's described in the post to be among friends, so this person is going to a dinner party hosted by two supposed friends, and other people invited are also all friends. Since you're all friends and kind of in the same friend group, it's going to be different than if these people are people that you are not very familiar with or have developed no rapport with. So in the previous frat party buying drinks scenario, one of the main reasons why I could empathize with the person who was in question being scorned upon for requesting money is that he didn't really know the other people, right? At least that's what I'm assuming, or didn't know them very well. This kind of argument doesn't really hold up with the blind post that I saw because, they're all friends in a dinner party. So there should probably be some kind of social underlying contract and understanding where everybody's like, yeah, we're all friends. We're going to cover each other's tabs, make sure that we're all having a good time. If you cover it for me this time, then, sometime in the future, I'll pay it back. And we'll all be friends and be happy together and, it'll be a good time. Man, that's just not as in play in the previous scenario when I could empathize with the other person. So with that in mind, that definitely takes a knock on these hosts' behavior, right? If you're asking friends over, so now I'm standing back in my shoes. If I was asking friends over and I wanted them to have a good time, I'm just thinking about when I had friends coming over to my house. I'd always ask them, "Oh, you guys want some chips? You guys want some drinks? You hungry? We'll cook some food. Stuff like that, right? And this is the kind of etiquette that my parents did as well. Whenever my friends came over, my mom would very often be like, at least with my close friends, would you guys want to stay over? We can cook some food, invite your parents over, just have like basically turn what was more of a, I guess you could say, play date or just hang out into more of a dinner date slash dinner hangout. So more food, more investment involved. But the underlying point is that no matter how much the extent was of offering resources, whether it be snacks all the way up to a dinner, there was never an idea where we're like, yo, you gotta pay up. And of course, I can't exactly say this is the same situation because, first of all, in the blind post, I am very much assuming that these people are all functioning adults. So they all have their own income streams, they all have the means to pay back, and they're all mature enough to, make their own decisions. While the perspectives and experiences that I'm talking about here, of my own, were of when we were still underage and we don't have jobs or anything, and we were just fucking around, going at home, and our parents were the ones providing for us. So again, not quite the exact same, but I think the underlying point is that when you invite someone over, at least from my own experiences, and you offer them things to make them feel enjoyable and comfortable in your residence, well, you're not going to be charging people for money as well. So it's not necessarily going to be something that is, not going to be something that is really that important. So the fact that the host did this is definitely, I guess, a knock against their character. Now, one interesting thing was that some of the comments were describing how it's okay if the host did this and told the friends, at least beforehand, before coming to the party, that they'd have to do this kind of maneuver, right? So then at least it gives a little bit of choice for the people that are coming to the party. If they really didn't want to, do this kind of money splitting, then they could like come up with some excuse to not go to the party. But the underlying feeling and idea, even if you basically prescribe and say that you'll probably be requesting money beforehand, I think it's still the same because the people coming to the party are still going to feel like, oh, even if we come to a dinner party hosted by you, I guess there's always going to be this understanding that we'll have to pay for some of it. And it's not, as a host, when you're inviting people over, you'll always want to make them feel the most comfortable, right? Which was what I was describing. That's why you offer things like snacks and dinner and stuff like that. But if you are basically asking people to pay for it as well, or have the thought that they're going to have to pay for it, no matter how small it still is a slight added amount of stress or burden on the people coming to the party, right? It's not like they can just show up and do whatever. It's like there has to be some kind of monetary involvement as well. It's going to be an investment, not just in their time, but also in their monetary reserves, which is not something that you want to do as a host. Now, this kind of approach, another comment that was semi-countering it or kind of supplementing this comment about making sure that that it would be more okay if you at least, the host, said that this would be happening before the friends came. The other kind of supplemental point to that is if the event is not something where it's like, oh, we want to host something and we want you guys to come over. And it's more of like, oh, we all agreed to do something together. And as a side effect of that, we just decided that this person's house was the best. See, there's a little bit different as seems like one of them is like the host initiating this event. So they were the ones that came up with the idea and then invited people over. As opposed to the second scenario where it's more of a group idea that everybody was talking about and then came to a consensus. And then as a side effect, they were like, oh, okay, we need a place to actually do this, right? So let's just pick this one person's house. But since the main idea was that everybody thought about this first, then it would be more okay to actually do this requesting, right? Because it seems like nobody is truly the host. We're doing it at one person's house, but everybody came up with this idea, so then everybody should pitch in. As opposed to the first scenario where, I mean, if you're the host, you're the one who came up with this idea, then you should be able to cover everything. And it would be kind of scummy to try and come up with something, but then still ask the other people that are just joining in to contribute to it, even though you're the one who came up with everything and is supposed to make everybody else feel at home. So after seeing those comments and really thinking about it more, one of these things is like when I have a preconception and then I say something that challenges it or has a previous opinion, especially if most of the people in this whatever environment it is that was posted in are all agreeing with this contrary opinion, I think it's important to at least take a step back and think about, okay, I believed in something different. I had a differing thought that I would do something else, contrary to what other people think. Why is that? Why do I think that this is a better course of action than perhaps what everybody else thinks is? And seeing this post just made me do that again because I was like, if I was really a guest and someone invited me over to like a house party that we're all having and they're like sharing snacks and stuff, and then I'm having a great time, having fun talking with people, and then I go home and I see this notification, would I be a little pissed? And when I think about it, I don't think I'd be pissed, but it would certainly be something like, interesting, really. They're doing this. This is the kind of person. And I don't think I'd be pissed at these people, but it would certainly be like a note, a character trait that I would assign with these people. I'd be like, okay, these are the type of people where if they host something, they're going to charge you money for it. They are extremely stingy, and they believe that the monetary value, no matter how small or large, I guess there could be gradients of it, but the monetary value of the resources that they allocate for whatever they are hosting, well, it's going to be more important than whatever social relationship, contract, vibe that we have going on as friends. And I think one last point that I want to bring up is that the main reason that the poster brought this up was like, he was wondering, I feel like dropping these friends. I feel like not hanging out with these friends anymore because it really gave me a bad vibe and made me mad. And he wanted to get the opinions of other people. And the vast majority consensus, besides just agreeing with him that this isn't really a great thing to do, they were like, yeah, these people are really cheap, you should drop them. And I think that's a good, interesting second perspective / question on this whole situation. Is this something that is droppable for between friends? Like, is it really something where we're like, okay, you're gonna do this, so really, I don't want to be friends anymore? Is this something for me where if someone did that, I would not be friends anymore? I definitely think not. As I described, I would just make a mental note about these friends, and then I'd be more hesitant, perhaps, about going to things that they host because, I don't really want to pay money for things. It would be more like I might as well just go to like an attraction somewhere in public instead, like go to a bar or a club if I'm gonna have to pay money for it, right? So I don't think I would drop friends because perhaps they're still very enjoyable. And as I think, um, basically my outlook, my perspective, and how I approach relationships with other people, I like to think that people are never perfect. There's always going to be things that you dislike about other people, and that would just be a thing that I would not necessarily like, kind of dislike about whoever did that, about the hosts, right? But if they have a lot of other positive qualities, especially if this is like the only thing that I really don't like, I could just say, wow, these people are really stingy people. But, overall, they're still very caring people. They are great to talk to. They're very fun to be around. And I can lean on them in emotional support situations as well. This is definitely not something that you would drop a friendship over, at least for me. So, but of course, that's only me. I like to give a lot of people second chances or just a lot of leeway, right? Even if they have bad qualities, they still have good qualities. And that's probably why I was friends with them in the first place. So just having this one, perhaps very frugal and thrifty and miserly sense of money in relation with social relationships, it's not a deal breaker. And hopefully, you listening to this, perhaps you'll think about this as well. What would you do in this situation? And how would you deal with it if your friends started doing something like this?